are listening to Dr. Troy Munson with Words of Radiance. Now here is your host, Dr. Munson.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Troy Munson. And this podcast, one of my favorite words, the things that we're all trying to achieve. If you've been out there in the spiritual realm and searching and reading many books and trying to figure yourself out like many of us are, though there are a lot that are not, but if you've been on that road for a while now, you may or may not have picked up this word, imperturbability. Imperturbability, if we look at to be perturbed, means you're bothered constantly. And as we achieve imperturbability, we literally are so at peace, so still, so completely at rest that we don't mind whatever happens. And that, my friend, is imperturbability. So it's kind of like a pool of water where it's just totally still, the air is still, and it's just practically glass. And you throw a pebble and it ripples across, and within a few moments, it's back still again. Most of us, if we look at our mind as this pool of water, we see just this unbelievable ripples. It's like this chronic, unhappy bunch of waves, bunch of whitecaps, some of us, constantly. It's never still. Even when we sleep, it's not still. In a couple of podcasts now, over the last, few months, we're here in the beginning of 2022, and I've talked about things like it's impossible for you to make me angry. In fact, it's impossible for you to make anyone angry. If somebody's angry with you, it means they were already angry before you. And even this, imperturbability, is something that we're going towards. And I love the phraseology by, I think it was Vernon Howard, who said, the man who cannot be harmed by anybody, my goodness, now there is a man to be reckoned with. And literally going into that place where you are unharmable because you are so certain of what you are, nobody could possibly do anything to you. And I'll put that caveat again that I've used in the past is, yes, bodies do look like they harm other bodies, but ultimately you are not a body. And if you still think you are, hopefully eventually you'll realize you are not. But at this point, if you realize, my gosh, that's true, I'm not a body. I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience, and I'm going to let go of this physical body and move on to much more amazing things. And it almost gets to the point where it becomes, well, then why do anything? As you get down that spiritual path far enough, these thoughts begin to come. And it almost seems like an apathy, like a not caring at all. But really, you deeply care so much that you want to honor you and what is within you, that you no longer want the issue of being bothered by anything, being perturbed, being quote-unquote harmed. You don't care about the body too much anymore. You wear it loosely. And when you wear the body loosely and people come at you with whatever, yelling, screaming, blah, 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 and you're just at peace, they're in their own tied-up knot kind of way, and you're just still at peace. Everything's still okay. Everything's wonderful as it is. Of course, they don't think it's very wonderful, but you do, and you realize something they don't. Then you'll totally understand what is meant by that wonderful passage. We do not war against flesh and blood, but against principalities and rulers of this dark world. And ultimately, anything in the physical realm we would call this dark world, because it wants to distract, it lies, it does all kinds of weird things. And so then we get to happenstance upon one of the more monumental passages, biblically speaking, that is so profound that you, yes, you, the listener, you will say to this mountain, be thrown into the sea, and it will obey you. And I tell you, when you start to have some form of brain activity that's running in the wrong way, like towards anger, towards fear, towards feeling small and unimportant, towards ineffectiveness, towards being lost or a loser or gotten the best of, whatever it is, I don't care. When you start seeing your mind run that way towards sadness, towards unhappiness, towards fear, towards anger, towards pride, whatever, to stop in the tracks and literally tell that mountain that's wanting to form in your mind, that's trying to be backed by a bunch of other lies like, yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but what about that? And as it tries to get backed by all of that, will you, at that moment, tell that mountain to be thrown in the sea, I want no part of you? Now that is a monumental task. But I'll tell you what, the first time you accomplish it and you stop something in its tracks in your mind, and it keeps trying to throw things, case in point, I had part of my computer program that I work with in my office all of a sudden mess up, and I just worked a half an hour creating a couple paragraphs that were quite intricate and difficult for a client, and it got erased. It was like I was done. I was just so done. And my brain starts to say, yeah, this is going to take you time. You had all these other things you got to do. Now you're not going to be able to do that. And this is like the 20th time this has happened. And it just starts going down all these roads and building this fictitious judgment and court case against why you should not remain at peace and why you should get so deeply upset right now. And I looked at it all, and it took me about 2 minutes of I closed my eyes. I kept stopping every track and every train that wanted to start rolling out of that thinking process, and finally got to the point, you will be cast into the sea, into the abyss, never to be seen again. And as I did that and got to the point of it, all of a sudden, peace came back in. My mind knew that it could not sell me on another lie. And I just simply sat down and began typing again. Because what else was I going to do? I mean, I suppose I could have left and said, I think I'm done here today. But I thought, no, typing it out right now while it's fresh, still in my mind, I can piece it together, is the wisest move. So I want you to take at least an example of that and try to catch yourself the next time. Now, if you're new to this, you might be like me, where I'd get 2 or 3 days into being really upset, and I'd just be livid. I don't even know how I lived with myself back then. But all of a sudden, I would wake up and realize what I had done, and I'd look back over the last 2 days and think of the time that I wasted and those 2 days that I cannot get back. And the next time it was half as much. And then the next time it was half as much again, until finally it was just minutes at a time when I'd finally catch it. And then it was seconds. And then it was instantaneous. It takes time. And it took me almost 3 years to get to that point of catching it quickly enough to get to it. But I'm still amazed when something can catch me off guard like that computer program and send me into a bit of a spiral for about 10, 15 seconds that, man, it just seems like it's everything you got to let go of that train and not want to hop on and just ride it on down. And so you can do this. You can reach imperturbability. You can reach the point where you don't mind whatever happens, and you just simply put one foot in front of the other and allow Spirit to move you at any whim, any will, knowing that it will take perfect care of you, and it will be amazing. You can judge it otherwise, but as you start realizing the perfection of what Spirit is doing in you, you won't want to resist that anymore. So I hope that helps. Until next time, I'm Dr. Troy Munson on Words of Radiance.